G'day. Hello. Here we are, 11th of October. I should know the date. It's my birthday, 11th of October 2023. Here we are. It's Chat with Matt, half an hour or so to talk about whatever you guys might like to. Where are we starting? I popped on a little poster last night that said, World peace starts with inner peace. Empower yourself to choose it. It's a choice. Hey, Sister Mary. It's a choice, inner peace. It's not... Well, it can be definitely influenced. I think Jill put on a comment about how she'd experienced beautiful inner peace after spending a lovely day in, an environment that she'd been looking forward to because that's why she moved to an area. And of course, our environment does always, yay, awesome to have you live here, Mary. Hi, Jill. Our environment always does help us, or at least it can help us feel peaceful in ourselves, and therefore feel that we have an inner peace. But ultimately, the inner peace is a choice, and some people in exactly the same environment, of course, are not feeling peaceful, and potentially you can stretch yourself as we progress on the path. We can stretch ourselves to feeling peaceful, no matter what our environment, which is the goal, of course, to maintain inner peace independent of what situation is going on around us. But that's not to downgrade the peace that we find when we find ourselves in situations that are agreeable or environments that are supportive and helpful. Peace is always there, Matt. We just have to see it. Yeah, basically we align with it because the peace is in our heart, in our soul. It's in a choice not to be reactionary. That's what peaceful is, right? Peace is when we stop fighting with ourselves, stop fighting with what is, stop making things out there wrong and then wanting to fix them. And that's not to say that once we choose peace that all sort of evolution stops and nothing gets any better. Not at all, because once we choose that peace, we start emanating more strongly with the vibration of peace, and then we attract situations to us that mirror that back. We start perceiving everything through the eyes of this vibration, and therefore the world seems to get better for us, and that's all that really counts, right? We're all living in our own realities based on our own perceptions that are heavily influenced by the vibration that we are consciously choosing to maintain or subconsciously being entrained into. It's our choice, right? Whether we are consciously maintaining a vibration or subconsciously being entrained to what's happening, or unconsciously even being entrained into the vibration that we're existing in. Of course, the vibration that's around us is influencing us, and when we're consciously choosing to maintain a vibration, when we're consciously choosing to maintain a vibration, we are having to override or expand out of the vibration that we're being subject to. That's part of it. Otherwise, it'd be really easy. It'd be really easy to maintain our vibration if external influences and past life influences and all these different programs and traumas and pains weren't conflicting with what we are choosing. That's a shame, Mary, but it does happen from time to time. There's not much I can do from it at this end. That is true. Jill said, I felt peaceful being to help another too. Sounds sanctimonious, but I just felt so content. Yeah. Getting the opportunity to help someone, always, for those of us who align with the role of, giver and supporter and feel purposeful in helping others, whenever we get the opportunity to do something that feels purposeful, it is going to help us feel more content, because our soul is going to feel like, and that part of our persona that aligns with our soul mission is going to feel that we're on track, and that is always going to incite or invite or invoke, probably the word I was looking for. It is going to invoke a sensation of satisfaction, and that then helps us feel less angst e.g. more peaceful, right? Because when we're on purpose, we feel more complete. And when we feel more complete, we're always going to feel more peaceful. When we're off purpose, or at least we don't feel that we're on purpose based on what our program of purpose is, we're always going to feel that we need to correct something. And if we don't really know what it is to correct, or if we don't think we have the opportunity to correct it, we are going to feel unpeaceful, right? We're going to feel at war with what is, because we're not getting the opportunity in what is to live our purpose. Now, the point is, living our purpose, again, is a perspective that we're at choice around. And while many of us do feel a lot of purpose in helping others, we can help others in many, many ways, not just in physical acts of guiding them here or helping them carry their shopping up the stairs or whatever, right? There's all these external acts of helpfulness, like Jill experienced when she gave a tourist a lift who had walked further than she thought, or at least had further to walk back to her hotel than she thought. Beautiful. We all enjoy those opportunities to help someone in the physical. Hey, Brother Glenn. But we also can be very much on our purpose and being helpful energetically when we don't have those opportunities so readily to go out and physically help. Of course, many of us are in situations where if we did go out with an intention to find people to help, we would find people to help. But many of us don't feel comfortable in doing that, and therefore we sort of live in this paradox where we want to help people, and yet we're too scared to go and offer our services to help people in the external, and therefore we feel off purpose and angsty, right? Angry or frustrated, probably a better way of describing it. We feel frustrated that we're not getting to live our purpose, and therefore we're not at peace because we're actually not choosing to step past our own resistance to feeling confident enough to go out and offer our services in various ways that we could. Ultimately, it all comes down to internally choosing to feel at peace with what is and confidently choose to express our vibration out in the world, our purposeful vibration out in the world as best that we can given the current situation. Hey, Sister Michelle. So world peace, right? As I was saying, our external world is a mirror of our internal world. And as long as we're viewing the world through frustrated eyes, we're always going to see conflict around us. We're always going to see a representation of our own inner conflict happening around us. Now, of course, we have all of this BS going on with particular powerful entities that are trying to keep the world divided, keep people unhappy and unhinged and easily controlled, right, through fear. Keep people fearful, basically. What better way to keep people fearful than to contrive and create conflict in the world and potentially exacerbate what you are seeing, right? Accentuate and highlight the potential danger and conflict of what is happening somewhere else in the world. So we're also dealing with that, and that's an easy fix. Just stop watching the news, right? Stop watching the media, which is portraying all of this stuff that really you have no control over. You have very little that you can do about the situations that are happening in various parts of the world, and yet they are dominating your news feed, right, with the potential of all of this bad happening. That news is not informing you to any ends, right, other than making you fearful and sad, and whatever, unsettled, unpeaceful. So stop it. It's completely in your control. Jill said, I guess today being stuck in a traffic jam caused by excessive roadworks, it was hard to stay peaceful, but I glance at the pickies I posted, took some deep breath and calmed down. I didn't need to be anywhere at a specific time today, so I just let it be. Exactly, and that's always easy when you don't have a perceived obligation to be somewhere at a certain time, of course, which is all, construct. There's a whole idea, and I know it's how the world works, and we have time frames and things. But when the point is, exactly as I was talking about the news, when it's out of our control and there's nothing we can do about it, we're stuck in a traffic jam. Not our fault, right? It wasn't our intention to be late. Then all we can do is really send a message to where we are going and say, hey, I'm going to be late. It's only time. I know we make a big deal of it. We make a big deal of it in our society because we've been trained to think that time is money, right? And therefore very important, because money obviously is very important for whatever friggin' reason, right? Not that it's very exciting stuff, but yeah, it does give us a degree of freedom and potential. And time is put in this same category, that it's a very finite resource, and we're going to run out of it and we're going to die one day, and we don't want to waste our time sitting in a traffic jam. You don't need to waste your time in the traffic jam. You can be just as bright and just as radiant in the traffic jam as you can be anywhere else. That's the point, right? It doesn't need to suppress your beingness. It doesn't need to suppress your vibration. It doesn't need to suppress your purpose just because you are static in your car in a place that you didn't anticipate being stationary for so long, right? Thanks, Susan. Yes, it is my birthday today. Susie, sorry. I can't help but read your name as it appears on the profile. So, yeah, it's a choice, right? It's a choice. And of course, we're always going to get triggered. And that's normal. You're not failing when you get triggered. You're not failing when you pull up into a traffic jam and go, oh my fucking God, what am I stuck here? Why are they still doing these roadworks? Can't they get this shit sorted in Japan? They can sort this stuff in, 2 days. Why is it here for 3 months in our country? Et cetera, right? We have all of this frustration around the situation. And then we can catch ourselves and we go, what's the point? Take a breath. Be here now. Relax. What your feelings, what you're releasing. This is an opportunity. It's a choice, right? And we have to have awareness to catch ourselves in the moment that we're triggered, in the moment that we're feeling frustrated, in the moment we've lost our peace. And then we have to have the discipline and the devotion to bring ourselves back into peace. Yes, Mary, it is. So, yeah, you're on the same birthday as me. I keep forgetting if you're the 10th or the 11th. I know I've got a range of friends, including my sister, who's on the 10th, who have their birthdays at similar times. But your birthday's tomorrow in the States, right? Pretty sure you've got the same birthday as me, plus a few years. So happy birthday, Mary, for your tomorrow and my today. Anyway, getting back to choosing whether you enjoy your birthday. For many, many years, I really didn't enjoy birthdays. I had quite a bit of resistance to it. I didn't like being celebrated in any way, really, as it felt like a burden. When you've got very low self-worth for past life reasons, not any reason due to this upbringing, then it's hard to be celebrated without feeling a burden or a form of guilt, right? That you don't really deserve all these people celebrating you because you don't celebrate yourself, right? And so it takes a while to overcome that, and I still am in the process of overcoming that. I don't think I'll ever be one to be overly jubilant and need to celebrate my birthday because it's important. Because I don't really perceive that it is that important. It's just a day, right? It's just a day based on a calendar that I was born just like any other day, really. But it is a opportunity to, reflect, highlight, to begin anew. And I know astrologically it has some influence. I'm back in the constellations, or some of them at least. Only really the sun sign. That's all. Only the only real constellation that's lining up. All the rest are completely different from when I was born. But yeah, I guess there's certain other factors and influences in this day. But ultimately, it's more of a choice again, and it's more of a remembrance and an opportunity to reflect and set new intentions and to be grateful and appreciative of what you have achieved over the last year or so, and reflect on where you're going and what you're choosing to achieve. that's what I choose to use the day for, rather than needing and expecting other people to celebrate me because I'm such a wonderful person. Right? I don't need that because I'm choosing just to be happy, right? So yeah, this is the way of the internet freezing and buffering. But nevertheless, you'll be able to watch it back in replay. And oh no, it's only 9:17. Wow, I seem to have delivered a lot. Have I been talking really quickly? Maybe I've been overloading the airways. Michelle can agree. I've never been able to celebrate myself sad. It doesn't need to be sad, Michelle. It doesn't help to apply another wrongness on the wrongness, right? We don't need to beat ourselves up for feeling beaten up. It's just a reflection of your past lives. So it's not really. It doesn't have to be sad. I know other people make it sad, and I know there's a big supposed to around you're supposed to celebrate your birthday, and you're supposed to feel really special, and you're supposed to, and you're supposed to, and you should. That doesn't help. You're a unique being here on the plane, being yourself. Embrace who you are, as opposed to thinking it's bad and wrong that you can't celebrate your birthday or you don't feel comfortable celebrating yourself. Because, it's not going to help you celebrate yourself to make yourself wrong or to feel sad that you haven't in the past been able to do so. So, celebrate what you can and don't worry too much about shortcomings. Focusing on shortcomings is a no-win situation. We don't need to hide them or repress them or deny them. I think the more that we can openly speak about our idiosyncrasies, our differences, and some of which are challenging and not so comfortable, in a way that is accepting, the better off we're going to be, because we're going to sort of break the voodoo around the badness of something. As long as we're making something bad, we're always going to resist it, and what we resist persists. So if you're sad because you can't celebrate yourself, and you feel wrong that you can't celebrate yourself, then the resistance around not being able to celebrate yourself is going to maintain the inability to celebrate yourself. And it's not that celebrating yourself is the goal, right? It's not that it's important. It's not that once you can celebrate yourself, your life's going to be so much better. But if you can disentangle all of the wrongness around it, then you will find yourself able to celebrate to a degree, and at least you won't be holding this like a badness in your field that brings you down and creates an opportunity to be sad. Susie said, my family have always made a big effort on birthdays. Tony's not so much. Tony's probably with an apostrophe, not so much. So that's just the way I like to do it. Tony's family. Yeah. Yeah, and that's it, right? A lot of it is programming from our upbringing, from our past, right? That birthdays are supposed to be celebrated because that's what we do. It's the same with Christmases. Some families were really big on Christmas, and therefore, someone who's brought up in that program, in that ideology, in that habit where Christmas is a big deal and it's all done in certain ways, then they feel wrong if they don't maintain that tradition, right? They feel that they're almost dishonoring your ancestors or your upbringing if you don't do the same, as opposed to awesome, happy birthday, Mads. As opposed to someone who didn't have that programming. And I'm not saying the programming's wrong. It's just beneficial for us to be aware of what is driving certain ideas, what is driving certain behavior, what is driving certain concepts, what is driving certain judgments, right? That it is right to do something or it's important to do something. And it's not wrong because we're choosing to do it because we've always done it. But it is beneficial to recognize that and why we choose to maintain certain things, or why we feel adverse to certain things, or why we feel not so worried about certain things, and rather than make ourselves wrong about that, rather than comparing ourselves with other people's choices around things, whether they celebrate or not, what degree do they celebrate to, rather than judging them, through this sort of lens of comparison, or even concerned that maybe we're not doing it right because other people aren't doing the same thing as us, we can just let all of that go and recognize that we're all being driven by certain influences. And as long as it feels useful, then there's no problem, right? As long as it feels purposeful, as long as it feels, as long as we're doing it from a foundation that feels wholesome, that we're not forcing things or creating stress in our life or feeling fake about what we're doing, then it's all good, right? Whether we celebrate or not doesn't really matter, as long as we feel authentic in what we're choosing. And in feeling authentic, I think it's beneficial to recognize what is driving the authenticity, because it's not always our deepest version of self, right? And so as we dig into these things, not like on a witch hunt, but just choosing to be more consciously aware of the expression of our life, right? What is driving our expressions? What is driving our actions? What is driving our feelings? What is driving our perception of the world? Then it's all good, right? As long as we are consciously aware of what we're doing. Mary said, "Don't you think people like to be remembered on their birthday? I always send a happy birthday to all of my notifications of my friends' birthdays. I love to do that." Well, some people love to be remembered on their birthdays, and some people feel that it's a burden, Mary. That's the point. Because some of us with really low self-worth don't actually like being recognized, or at least didn't like being recognized, and it somehow feels threatening in some degree to be singled out on your birthday or any day and made special, because when the eyes of, based on past life experiences, when a lot of people are looking at you, it can feel like you're on trial because you have deep, dark memories of being on trial and what came after it. So it's interesting why some people do like to be remembered and why some people don't like to be remembered. The point is, you like to remember people on their birthday, and you like to honor them with bringing them close of mind and telling them and letting them know that you are thinking of them at that time. That feels purposeful for you, and it feels like it drives a level of connection. So that's great. But the point is not everyone's going to appreciate it. And that's not your deal, right? That's not you're not supposed to worry about, I don't know if this person's going to appreciate it or not. Your job is to do what makes you feel good, right? And when you are doing that, you are giving them an opportunity, because your intention was pure in sending them a message to let them know that you're thinking of them on this day. That helps you to stay connected with them. If they feel resistance to that, they have an opportunity now to disentangle what is creating that resistance. So as long as you are doing it because it feels good to you to maintain connections, and not because you feel you have to and that it's an obligation and a burden to send a message to everyone on their birthday, then it's great, right? Because all you need to do, all any of us need to do, is maintain our intent, right? Make sure our intention is coming from a loving space rather than a fearful space, right? If you're doing it out of fear, because if you fear that if you don't maintain these connections with these people, then they're not going to be available to you when you need it, or they're not going to send you happy birthday or whatever, right? If it's coming from lack mentality, then it's not so great. If it's coming from love and abundance, then it's awesome. So that's where our responsibility for each of us begins and ends. What is our intention behind the actions, not the action itself, right? Some people don't give two hoots about birthdays, but that's not a wrongness, and it's not that they don't want to maintain connections. It's just that they've got some shit in their past that's created a resistance around birthdays. Maybe their birthday was never celebrated as a child. Maybe something bad happened on a birthday. Maybe in a past lifetime, on a birthday, a specific birthday, it was, an initiation day that went horribly wrong, whatever it might be. So some people have resistance to birthdays, and that's fine. We have to be willing to accept that we can honor them on their birthday, but they might not be able to receive it. And that doesn't mean that they're slighting you or resentful of you. Well, they might be resentful of you on the surface, but that's not your issue, right? as long as you're not doing it deliberately to wind them up, knowing that they hate having their birthday celebrated, so you celebrate it anyway. So the point is all we need to do is look after our intention, because we can never manage other people's reactions or responses to our actions or our words or even our thoughts or our energy intent, right? We can send someone positive energy and they can resist that. That's their choice, right? That's their choice based on their stuff. So all we have to worry about is, what is our intent? Are we operating from love, or are we operating from fear? Are we operating from abundance, or are we operating from lack? That's it. And then do what feels most appropriate. And at the same time, develop awareness about how things are responding around you, but not from the point that you need to figure everything out and understand it all and categorize it all and try and micromanage shit. But as we become aware, then we're more likely to operate in a way that is more beneficial for everyone, because we're very, very complex beings who have a great capacity to manage complex ideas if we give them space and intent. I've missed a lot of comments here, so I'll just spin back. Thanks, M. M said, happy spin. Very happy to have you in my life too. Jill said, I used to enjoy getting birthday cards in the post, usually with lovely messages in them. Nowadays, it's emails or Facebook greetings, which are lovely, but not the same. I just thought no one has ever thrown me a surprise party. Maybe they know it wouldn't be my cup of tea. Yeah, and exactly. It's an interesting thought, right? This idea of a surprise party is out there. And it's easy to think that you've missed out on something if you haven't ever had it. And then when you inquire, it's like, well, I wouldn't really want one, but no one's ever done it for me. It's kind of like we have these conflicting ideas, but somehow it's a slight against us that someone hasn't done it, even though it's not really our cup of tea. It's an interesting thing, and it goes well beyond just surprise birthday parties. There's lots of things out there that we can think, oh, I've never had that experience, and it's kind of like, well, I don't really want that experience, but I've never had it. It's kind of we sort of live and die by comparisons. They say comparison is the thief of joy. Michelle said, if our deeply ingrained self-doubts keep coming up in everything, can intention alone overcome this? Yes, of course. Your intent is to be confident in yourself and know that your doubts are going to come up, right? Doubts come up. But if you keep holding an intent to act in the way that is most in alignment with your intention, with your sole purpose, then you're just going to step past those doubts to some degree. Not always perfectly, right? Not usually perfectly. The doubts are going to have some influence, but the more that you step past them, the more that you step into a form of action in alignment with your intent, with your desire, with your heart, even though the doubts have come up, the doubts slowly but surely have less and less influence. The most important thing is not to stop just because you have doubts, right? And not to make yourself wrong just because you have doubts. Everyone has doubts, Michelle. This is the point. Everyone has doubts. Those who are more expressive in the world have just learned to step past their doubts. Their doubts aren't so influential in their life. So don't make yourself wrong. That's the point. Don't make yourself wrong for having doubts. Don't make yourself wrong for not desiring to be celebrated. Don't make yourself wrong for not having had a surprise party. Don't make yourself wrong, right? Full stop, period. Acceptance, right? Self-acceptance is the foundation. Well, awareness is the foundation, but self-acceptance is the next step, right? After we become aware, we have to be willing to accept. So you're aware that doubts are coming up. You're aware that they are doubts. Now your job is to accept that the doubts are coming up and then choose to do what you feel to do in your heart, even though it doesn't feel easy to do, even though these doubts are creating hesitance. See, right? Oh, is this the right thing to do? Now I'm not sure. I was sure. I had an idea to do something. Now there's doubt there. Is this the right thing to do? Are they going to accept it? Am I going to be safe in doing this? All of this shit's come up. Just go back to the first initial idea and go with it, right? Even though that you're now having all this hesitancy around the doubts that have popped in. And slowly but surely you'll recognize the difference between doubts that are based in past and new ideas that are recognizing the potential issues in what you're choosing to do, right? The awareness that, oh, this could actually not go the way that I want because this and this is actually a real potential. And of course, there's a crossover there that always happens when, we do become aware of some potential hiccup in the plan, and then the doubts come up and over accentuate them, and we make it a mountain out of a molehill, and then we stop doing what we were doing because we've now created a mental cascade around the potential things that could go wrong. Ultimately, we just have to come back to, ultimately, if we follow our first instincts, we usually do a lot better in life. When an opportunity arises and we get the impulse to do something, more than likely doing that would yield a better result than going through the whole mental analysis BS and then doing nothing. I know it can lead to issues as well when we are quote unquote impulsive and just act on the first impulse that comes our way. We're trained in our society to think first and not be impulsive. But ultimately, a lot of what we think about now is so entangled in so many different potentials, and the world has got so complex that this whole process of thinking about what came up as an impulse generally leads to inaction, procrastination, and stagnation, and therefore frustration. So going back to becoming more impulsive, I think generally is a good stage. And then we refine from there, where we allow our impulses to be modified and adapted and adjusted as we progress. So you don't get fixated on what was the first impulse, but you take action based on the first impulse and then modify what you are choosing to do based on the feedback you are getting, right, as we progress through it. And sometimes, you pull out of doing something because you recognize that it's potentially dangerous or not going to yield a beneficial result. But many times we can just adapt what we're doing to minimize the potential for the negative repercussions and maximize the potential for positive outcomes. Ultimately, we learn through experience, and we're all here to gain wisdom. So we have to do things. We can't just gain wisdom by sitting and thinking. Especially sitting and procrastinating about our doubts. That is not going to gain wisdom, right? That's not living life to the more full. So, feel the doubts, do it anyway, choose to go with what your first impulse was, what your instincts were, what you were moved to do, and trust. And even if it doesn't go perfectly, which is unlikely to, be satisfied that you're actually doing things, right? That you're actually making waves, that you're actually out there having experiences. Ultimately, it's gonna go well. I think we're probably done, my friends. 9:36. That was Chat with Matt for this morning. Much love. Yes, exactly, Jill. Jill said, when you act on your impulses, is that leading to going with the flow? Generally, yeah. Generally we are, what's the word? Also starts with I, but it's not invited. Generally, these impulses are coming from what is going on around us, right? So that is the flow, right? The flow of energy around us. So people who are impulsive generally are going with the flow. Instinctive? Invited? inspired. Generally, the flow of energy around us is inspiring these impulses. Of course, going with the flow is there's various flows. Let's just put it that way. There's various level to flow as well. So it's very easy to go with the emotional flow as an example, right, of a different flow. It's very easy to go with the emotional flow, which might not take you in the direction your soul wants to go with. Can you go with your soul's flow, right? So that's a matter of it's almost like a matter of getting on the right level. It's like, think of it this way: in the atmosphere, there's winds that are going in different directions, right? It's amazing up there. There's different winds going in different directions. The wind on the surface is not the wind that's up at several hundred meters or several thousand meters. Like people who fly balloons know this very, very well. People who fly gliders know this very well as well. So the idea is if you're flying a balloon and you want to go somewhere, you have to get to the right level, right? The right elevation, so that the wind takes you in the direction you want to go. So similarly, when we want to go with the flow, and right, a balloon is a very, very good example of going with the flow because it's got no motivation of its own. So it's the same with ourselves. Do we want to go with the emotional flow, or do we want to go with our soul's flow? We need to get to the right vibration so that the flow is taking us in a direction that feels purposeful. Now, there's nothing wrong with going with our emotional flow from time to time if we're in party mode and the emotions are high and it's awesome and we're connecting with other people, then go with that flow, go with that emotive flow. It's an enjoyable experience, right? But we don't always just want to go with that flow. We want to be able to pick which flow we're going with. So going with the flow is not sort of like a fix-all ideology, right? So there is time to go with the flow and stop resisting. Definitely stop trying so hard to go against the flow. But don't just think that going with the flow is the answer to everything, because it's very, very much dependent on what flow you're tuning into and what the current conditions are, right? You don't want to go with the flow if it's a storm that's taking you out to sea, right? So, yeah. But I think what's more important is to just stop fighting against the flows so much, right? And stop making yourself wrong for not being able to go with the flow, or what you perceive going with the flow is. I think, a lot is made out of various concepts that is not so useful sometimes. So yes, thank you for adding that in right at the end, Jill. M said, I read something yesterday I liked. Resistance and motivation are sisters. Interesting pondering. Yeah, that is an interesting concept to ponder. Resistance and motivation are sisters. Two sides of the same coin, really. Because, what is motivating us? It's not always good things. And what are we resisting? Not always bad things. So be willing to dig into the concept of what is my motivation right now? Why am I feeling lack of motivation? Or why am I motivated to do certain things? And what am I resisting? And why am I resisting it? Why am I resisting this? Not necessarily that you need to analyze it, the bullshit right out of it, but to be aware of what's creating the resistance. Because sometimes we fight against our resistance and it's not really warranted. It's just like, oh yeah, I don't want to do that. And I can feel there's a resistance to it and I can let that be, not necessarily letting it overly control me or influence me or degrade me, but that was interesting. I had a little dropout for a moment. Anyway, my friends, I'm going to get off this because I'm going well over time. Awesome, Jill. Thanks, Susie. Great chat always. Good to check in with what's motivating or not motivating us. Much, much love. Enjoy your week. I will speak to you again next week from here, and then I will be off. And the following week we'll be in Ecuador. So that will be fun. Much, much love to you all. Bye for now.